Welcome back. We're looking at the Impressionists today. So Impressionist artists, and it fits right into our unit on experimentation, innovation, and challenging tradition, because this is a group of artists who absolutely were challenging everything about what was popular in art at the time.
So we're looking at about 1870s to 1880s, so the late 1800s, starting off in Europe, but it did make its way over across the Atlantic to the United States. So normally you're going to see artists blending, just like we talk about blending our values in our grid drawing. They would normally blend one color into the next, but you're not going to see that here. You're going to see a bright orange next to a deep blue, and so that's unmixed color being used within the paintings to help describe what they see, and that's actually where the term Impressionism came from.
Originally, art critics at the time, when they first saw the work of Monet along with other Impressionist artists, they found it to be absolutely unappealing because nothing was blended, like what Miss Madre was saying a second ago. Nothing was blended. All these colors were super bright and, in a way, almost unnatural because they were so saturated. And the critics at the time said, these are artists who are just doing impressions of paintings. So it's like they were impersonating someone who was a skilled artist. But of course, the artists at the time, they took that to be a compliment, and they kept the name, and they were calling themselves Impressionists, and it stuck. So one of the things that you'll notice, we talked about the saturated color. They didn't use black paint, and the reason was because black as a color you don't often see in nature. Even really, really dark values are often a dark blue or a dark purple or dark green, red, etc. And so as a rule, they would never use black paint. They would only mix other colors to try to get something really dark, but never just black paint by itself. That stems from that interest in light and color, really trying to capture a specific time of day, a fleeting moment. And Monet especially would return to the same exact location and paint the same exact scene over and over and over again, just at different times of day.
Right, so they were really interested, like you said, in light and color, and so they would study the light at different times of the day, and in the morning it might be more warm, and then, later it might be more cool, and so they would paint a lot of the times outside, and that was something new that was happening at the time with these Impressionist artists, is they would paint what they call in plein air, so they would paint outside, and they were painting just everyday scenes. Prior to this, people were always painting religious scenes or historical scenes, but now you're going to start seeing landscapes or, just a train station, a woman and a child. So really just observing the world around them in, a simple way. And so that was new at the time. And these artists were actually rejected. Their art was rejected from being displayed alongside other artists of the time. The Impressionist artists actually started their own exhibition called the Salon des Refusés, where their work was featured. And of course now some of their work is the most famous, Monet's Water Lilies, for example, but at the time it was rejected.
Right, even one critic was quoted as saying, wallpaper in its embryonic state looks more finished than that painting. Which, that's kind of a dig right there. Of course, these images, like you said, are super famous. We're really used to this style. In a way, it looks like old and old-fashioned to us. But just think, in the late 1800s, this was cutting edge. This was stuff that people would argue until they were blue in the face about whether or not this was even considered art. So we really have to hand it to them for putting themselves out there and really trying something that had never been done before.